If you feel like you're frequently just feeling exhausted, and you know if you're exhausted, in this video I'm going to help you understand the 10 most common causes for exhaustion and steps you can take to improve your situation. Here we go.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
Now, the tricky thing about exhaustion is that the underlying cause for that exhaustion could really vary from person to person, and some people are dealing with more than one underlying cause. And what's really tricky is that some of the things and steps that we'll talk about that could improve exhaustion for some people could make other people's exhaustion much worse, and you're going to understand why by the time we get to the end of this video. So the first thing we want to talk about is medications. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not telling anybody to stop taking their medication, especially if it's something that they really need to be a human being. But if you look at the side effects for a lot of medications, it says right there, oh, fatigue, exhaustion, all these things. So we have to understand that medications have the ability to make some people feel really tired. And a lot of people just don't put two and two. Oh yeah, I've kind of been really tired ever since I started taking that. So if you can think about that and figure that out for yourself, then you can talk to your doctor about, oh, are there other options that I could try that might not make me so tired? Or maybe you could even research, are there steps that some people take to correct the underlying cause of the issue that you're dealing with to see if there's steps you could take to fix the actual problem that's creating it? So this is just something that you have to keep in mind when you're going through the list of, what could be wiping me out so much? Sometimes it's a medication that a person is taking. A really big one, number 2, is someone eating the wrong diet. And I like to talk about this because I don't agree with anybody. Basically, my point of view is that there is no diet that's right for every person because we all process foods differently. So if you're just trying to eat what all the cool kids are eating, that might not be right for your physiology, and that could be making you really wiped out. So one thing we want to look at with diet is that a high carbohydrate diet is a great way to create some exhaustion, because that fuel source, when you're eating a lot of carbohydrates, is going to create spikes and crashes in available fuel. So once you burn through those carbohydrates, if you really spiked your insulin levels, then that insulin takes a lot longer than the glucose to come down, and as long as insulin is high, your body can't access stored fat and burn that for fuel. So you have no fuel source. You have no resources to kind of keep you going all day. So eating a high carbohydrate diet can be really problematic for most people. But in the same regard, a very low carbohydrate diet can be very problematic for some folks. Like, it's very popular to do a ketogenic diet, and you hear all about this, high-fat diet, you're going to be having all this energy, it's going to feel great, it's unbelievable. And it really is true for a lot of people that have the ability to process a high-fat diet. But for someone who can't really emulsify or process their dietary fats correctly, well, eating a high-fat diet isn't really going to give them a lot of fuel. It's going to give their body a problem. And if the only food that their body can really break down correctly is carbohydrates, then you just took away their only fuel source, and they're going to feel really lousy. So it's really not about what diet is popular. It's about looking at your physiology and understanding how to work with your body instead of against it. And my book, Kick Your Fat in the Nuts, kind of walks a person through the process of doing some simple self-tests at home to look at their body chemistry to get an idea of how their body is operating and what types of foods are going to go best for them. So the book is available on Amazon, but I'm going to put a link in the description below so you can get the whole thing totally for free if you want to figure out what the best diet for you would be. Because it's really important to eat the diet that's going to allow your body to have some fuel. You need fuel to get through the day, and a lot of people are not eating in a way that allows their body to access fuel. It's not just about putting the fuel in your gullet. Your body has to be able to access that fuel, and you also want your body to be able to access backup fuel sources once you've ripped through all the fuel that came in from the food that you ate. Which brings us to problem number 3, which is a lack of resources. A lot of people may be eating the wrong diet, but a lot of people have digestive malfunctions that don't allow them to really break that food down and get all the nutrients and minerals and resources out of that food that the body needs to operate correctly. So we don't just eat food because it's delicious. We need to break it down so that we can get all the nutrients out of that. We hear about vitamin and mineral deficiencies creating all these symptoms and fatigue and all these things, but we don't stop to think that, well, I'm eating food, but can I access the nutrients in that food? So if you're dealing with any type of digestive symptoms at all, that's a really strong sign that you're not properly breaking down your food so that you can get all the nutrients out of that food. So we'll put a link in the description below for our video on 20 signs you're not digesting your food correctly. If you feel like you're dealing with any type of symptoms, check that out and see what other signs may be showing up so you can take some steps to improve that digestive function so you can get all the resources out of the food you're eating. You're eating the food anyways, you might as well get the benefit from that food. Number 4 is some oxygen utilization issues. And this can kind of bring us back to this wrong diet situation here in just a second. But what we need to understand about oxygen utilization is we know that the body needs oxygen. We know we need oxygen just to be humans. But the problem is when our blood is leaning a little bit too far on that alkaline side, what's called the Bohr effect kicks in. And the Bohr effect tells us that when the blood is leaning too alkaline, that the oxygen can't get down to the tissues where it needs to be. So the oxygen may be there in your bloodstream, it just can't get down to the tissues where it needs to go to create all that energy and to make things go. So a lot of people have their blood leaning a little bit too far on the alkaline side for a variety of reasons. So one thing that we think about is that consuming carbohydrates can create a byproduct of CO2. CO2 is that stuff that we exhale. But CO2 is acidic and can help balance out the pH of the blood so that the body can use oxygen correctly. So if someone goes on a diet with no carbohydrates at all and their body is already leaning more on that alkaline side in the bloodstream, it could really magnify that imbalance and create these exhaustion issues. So the reality is that reducing carbohydrates is going to improve energy for most people. And when you go like keto or carnivore or something with no carbs, it's really going to elevate the energy for a lot of people because they're going to be able to access that fat and stored fat, and they'll have this non-stop fuel source. It's really great. But if someone's bloodstream is leaning a little bit more on that alkaline side, they could magnify that problem by eating that low or no carb diet and really create exhaustion issues. So again, it's really about looking at the individual and how their body is operating to understand the steps that are going to be right for that person. Number 5 is kids. And if you have kids, I don't really need to explain that very much. And not that kids aren't great, love you, but like this lady has kids. I'm just saying. Number 6 is sleep troubles. And this makes sense. Somebody's like, oh, I haven't been sleeping, so I'm just exhausted. That makes sense when we think about it in our head. But it really goes beyond just a lack of sleep. When you're not getting sleep, that body's not running all the processes that it needs to run at night while we're sleeping. There's all these rebuilding and repair processes that are going on, and the body needs time to regenerate itself. So we really need sleep, or some of these functions that keep us going all day are really not going to work correctly. So if you're having trouble sleeping, what's important for you to understand is that you can fix that. I was a major insomniac for a long time and it sucked. It's the worst thing ever. But just know that you can look into your own bio-individuality, get an idea of what's creating that insomnia for you, and then take steps to improve that. So we'll put a link in the description below this video for our video on real answers for better sleep. And go through that and figure out what steps you need to take to improve that situation, because you need to get sleep to be able to energize yourself throughout the day. Number 7 is chronic infections. A lot of people are dealing with these infections that they don't really know are going on. And if you're really sick, it makes sense that I'm just tired. I got no energy. I can't even get off the couch because my body is busy fighting off this invader. And what a lot of people don't realize is they have this invader that's been there for a long time. And it could be a digestive overgrowth, or it could be some other type of infection that's just chronic and has not been diagnosed and is creating a lot of fatigue issues. So that can be a big issue when we're looking at major exhaustion. Number 8 is anemia. And it's well documented that anemia and low iron levels can create a lot of fatigue and exhaustion type issues. But a lot of people feel like, oh, well, I'm not even a vegan. I shouldn't have any problems with anemia. But we need to look back at this resources thing, because a lot of people may be consuming good sources of iron, but if you can't digest that food like we were talking about, you can't access the iron in that food. So a lot of times it's a low stomach acid issue where the person just can't break down those proteins correctly and access the iron within that food. So if you're having those digestive symptoms, then you're going to want to take steps to improve that. And chapters 3 and 4 of that book that I told you how to get for free in the description below kind of walk you through figuring out which aspects of digestion may not be working correctly, and if so, what steps you can take to improve those. But that can be a really big deal. Your body really needs iron to be able to get you kind of going throughout the day. Number 9 is low thyroid issues and hypothyroid problems. And a lot of this can come from a person's inability to convert T4 to that active T3 thyroid hormone so that the body can function the way that it should. And a lot of times that conversion needs to go on in the liver, and if someone's liver is not functioning correctly, or maybe it's just overwhelmed, or maybe the body is having detoxification problems where it can't detox correctly, and then that kind of overwhelms the liver where the liver can't do all of its jobs, then they have those hypothyroid issues. So if that's a problem for you, we'll put a link in the description below for our video on understanding the connection between liver and hypothyroid. And number 10 is autoimmune issues. And this is very common today. And it's similar to that infection where the immune system is just kind of always ramped up and on the go. And it's using a lot of the body's resources to fight off what it's viewing as an invader. So if you can take steps to improve that situation for you, that could really improve exhaustion problems as well. And you know, with all these issues, you can find links below. We have videos on all these topics if you want to dig into them a little bit deeper. But you can see why this can be such a puzzle for some people. They may be dealing with multiple issues that we've talked about here, and so they try a remedy and it doesn't do anything, and they're like, I just can't fix this. It's really not about a remedy. It's about correcting the underlying cause of what's creating that exhaustion, and that's going to vary greatly from person to person. Just be willing to do the work and you'll be able to find some answers for yourself. And since digestion seems to be the kind of problem with a lot of these issues, jump over right now and check out that video on 20 signs you're not digesting your food correctly so you can see if there are issues going on with your digestion, and improving that could really improve the exhaustion for you. I can't wait to hear about your results.